Wahaha, it's time to cut my truck in half. I know I've gotten a lot of comments on that, so I thought I'd make it a little fun to start out with here. So we're ready now. Got the garage cleaned out and Crazy Dad Bumpside in here, and we're going to cut this pig in half. And obviously it's going to be a little more, detailed and careful process than just taking my Sawzall and whacking the thing in half. But thought it'd be a fun introduction to what we're going to do here. So I'm going to turn the video around and walk you through the process. The first thing that I'm going to do, I'm actually going to show you the easy way to do this, and then we'll get in and do it the hard way to finish off with. About lost my Sawzall there. So the easy way, not everybody has this option, and that's why I'm going to show you the second way to do it. But I've watched a lot of guys, actually that's probably a pretty easy way too. A lot of guys that are doing this online have got more money than most of us have laying around, so they're going out and buying a reproduction pickup bed and putting on it, and that may be $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 by the time they get that new bed put together and just the parts off of it. And I'm not going to do that. This is a low buck project. That's the whole point of what we're doing here. So the next step, and really the least expensive way to do this for what we're doing, is I started looking around my town here that I live in, and it's a pretty small town, and I found, I would say, 6 or 7 of the old beds, the long beds for this. And remember from earlier videos, mine's got some really bad sheet metal down here that's been in a wreck. Or else I would just shorten this bed itself and use it. But everything that I was seeing was long beds, and some of them were in better shape than this, some of them weren't. But then I just happened to go to a friend's house, and in their backyard, bingo, there it sat. They had a short bed, Bumpside bed on a trailer that they had there. And I asked him about it. He says, "Nah, we don't use it anymore. Yeah, you can have it for $100. I'm like, sweet. Only I had to do it a little better so we could save some money. So I actually traded them some old tools that I'd had sitting around for probably 30 years. I wasn't using them anymore, but it was exactly what they needed. So I swapped my old tools for a pickup bed trailer that's got already a stock short box on it. And so the first thing I'm going to do, we're going to get this black one off of here, and then I'm going to cut the frame and weld it back together and get it so that the thing's movable. And then we'll bring that trailer over here, pop the box off of it, bolt it down on here, and bingo, I'll have a drivable short bed. And that's really what we're shooting for. But then I want to take this bed, this mangled one, and it's really, the only place that it's really bad is this chunk of metal right here, back below the bump line and kind of on this whole side. And so it's usable for a trailer, so I don't want to just completely lose the trailer. Although I might use some parts of it on another project, and then I just chuck it. But I want to get the trailer back into shape, and then I could sell it for $100 or $200. And then my bed literally cost me nothing, and I actually made a profit on it. Lets me use that money to do more of the things that I want to do on the project. So anyway, that's where we're at. Really, the first thing I'm going to start doing here is get this bed unhooked and pulled off. I've got to pull the bumper off of it, and then we've got to take the wiring out of the lights and unbolt the bed from the frame. I think those are the main things that we've got to do. This thing has some extra saddle tank, gas tanks in it that I'm not going to use, and I may have to do a little more work on the other side to get that one out. It might be bolted through the bed. But at that point, we should be able to just lift this thing off and get it out of the way. So I've watched how other guys are doing it, and most of the time they just put some straps inside, use a cherry picker, and pick the thing up and roll it out of the way. And so that's what my game plan is. I'll come back as I get some of these parts off and kind of show you where we're going, and we'll move in that direction. So there you go. Next episode of the Crazy Dad Bumpside. We're starting the major transition part, and I get to play the mad scientist and cut my stinking truck in half. Sounds like a big deal. To some people it is. To me it's like, no biggie. Anyway, we're going to have fun with it. So here we go. crawled under there and WD-40'd all my bed bolts and the bumper bolts and everything. And then I've come out and taken the taillights out of the truck. And this is actually a real simple process. You have 2 screws holding the taillight lens in, one on the top, one on the bottom. So you take them out, and then this back setup goes in there, and there's one big screw at the top in that big hole, and another big screw right here in that big hole, and you take them out, and this thing pops out of there, and then you've got these 2 wires here go into the harness on the inside of it, and there's a side marker light on this one over here, and these have been broken out, but it also has a little plug there. So you unplug those 3 plugs, and you can see the hole down at the bottom there, and you just pull the wires out down from the bottom, and I've got them dangling out below here. So that's got us with all the wiring loose from it. And actually I probably am going to have to take this trailer plug setup loose too. And I don't know, it looks like it'll probably go all the way down, but I don't know, I'll probably pull it off by the time everything's said and done here. But that's got the lights out of both sides. Now we'll move on to probably taking the bumper off. I do that. I did find out that I've only got one saddle tank on the left hand side here, and then on the other side, the thing that's bolted into the bed is the tool compartment. Right down here, these things have this lockable tool compartment on them, and the box for it goes back in there, and then it's bolted up to the top of the bed. So that's what these big Phillips head screws are right there. So I won't have to do anything with it. It can stay with the bed. But that's where I'm at. So we'll go break some bolts loose, see if we can get our bumper off. Now we got the bumper off. That is fairly simple, but usually it's a big pain in the keister because we have rusty bolts. I had 3 bolts on each side, one there, and one there, hold it in, and all of them came out but one, and I had to cut it up to get it out of there. But that's usually about all it takes, and then I had to take the 2 bolts loose that were holding that in place, so I could take it out and leave it with the wiring harness. And there we go, it's out. We're going to haul it off to do the next piece. Then, so here's the next step. Got the gas tank, the extra gas tank out. That's what I like about these Ford trucks. And a lot of people really don't like this, but I do. Especially for what we're doing here for modifications. This truck has the main gas tank is behind the seat in the cab. You might go, oh, but we don't want it in the cab with us. Well, guys, they've been that way for 75 years, and very, very few times has it caused any problems. Not any more times than a gas tank anywhere else on a vehicle has caused problems. So on this bed shortening project, that's very convenient because we don't have to get a different tank or anything. If this was our main tank, this one would be too long to fit once we get the bed shortened, so you have to go buying another tank somewhere. But it's really convenient on this truck to have it behind the seat with the main one. So we're just going to disconnect the fuel lines that go to the switch that moves from this tank to the other one, and just hook them straight together so that we don't have anything but that main tank going. But anyway, getting this out was actually a pretty much piece of cake. I've had some of these that have been a real pain. But this one, it has these 2 straps that go underneath the tank and hold it, and they're real simple. They just have that one long bolt in them, and we get a deep well socket on that. It comes right off. I guess if yours are rusty, just make sure you WD-40 them good before you start trying to unscrew them. And that lets the tank loose and let it drop down quite a bit, but it was still being held in place by this filler hose. But once it dropped down, you've got to take the hose off of it here, the gas line. So that was easy. We just took the clamp off and slid the line off. If yours is bad, just cut it, because you're going to get rid of things anyway. Also, normally there is a wire connector here. This is your fuel gauge for this tank, but mine was gone or never was there. So you have to unhook that, and it probably just pops off. And then the thing is loose except for this right here, and I came up here and took it loose from the filler tube. It was clamped on here with this piece, and I just cut it because this was already in bad shape, so there's no point. Even if somebody chooses to reuse this thing, that was not worth keeping. And you can see the other end of the hose is pretty hammered too. So just cut that hose, and that allowed me to pull the tank and everything off of this line right here. So that extra chunk of black line there is the vent part of the filler system, and it goes down to the tank, but it just slides out of the filler hose. So once I got that and worked that tank over, it just came out and sat down on the floor real easy. This one's got a little bit of gas in it, but not much. I don't think it's got more than 3 to 5 gallons in it, and so it wasn't very heavy. If you get one that's full, it's a wrestling match to get them out, because they'll weigh, what is that? It's probably a 25 or 30 gallon tank times, I don't know what gas weighs. Water's 6 pounds a gallon, or 8 pounds a gallon, so I'll bet gas is, 5 or 6. So you're looking at, 75 or 80 pounds, 100 pounds of gas right there. I didn't do the math, I'm just playing in my head here. But anyway, it can be more of a wrestling match. But anyway, that's how you get it out. Then I went and just took this filler neck, was fastened into the body, and I didn't want it because I'm going to shorten this bed and everything, so I took it out. So now I've got a complete setup, and actually if anybody needs a tank like this for their long bed truck, it's here. I'd be willing to part with it for not much money, so let me know. It does have a little crack right there I'm seeing, but that's probably fixable. A lot of the tanks I've seen have been rusted out on the bottom. This would be a good alternative to that. So anyway, there you go. Now we're going to move on to, this thing's got 6 bolts holding the bed to the frame, so we're going to work on pulling them off, and then it'll be time to take that bad boy off of there. We're ready to take the bed off. It had 2 bolts back at the back edge here that didn't come all the way through, so they were just bolted on top and bottom of the frame. They came out pretty easily. Interestingly enough, these are the parts of the bed that they were bolted through, so they have broken off, and so we're probably going to have to get them welded back in place. Then if you go up the rail there's 1, 2, and 3 bolts up there that are carriage bolts. It means you have those round heads with the square on the bottom of them that holds them in place. Well, all but one of these spun those out trying to take them loose, which is normal here. So we got out the grinder wheel and cut the heads off of them so that we could drop them down through. So we're all loose now and ready to come out. I'm just going to have to figure out how I'm going to support this thing and get the engine hoist cherry picker in there. And most guys have been able to pick them up with that, so we'll see how that works out. Ready? She's ready to come off. We got her actually in the air, completely free from the frame, and it's not quite balanced because my cherry picker won't reach the halfway point, but you can see here that we can lift the sides quite easily. So I'm going to get me a couple of helpers out here on the front, and then we'll jack this puppy up and back the bed out of the garage here and probably set it on some sawhorses so that we can get to the frame, and then we'll be ready to move forward. Yep, this is going to be fun. Guys, she's on the ground. It really was quite easy. I got the thing by myself pulled back to where the front edge of it was just sitting on the back of the frame here, and then had my son come out and had him drive the crane so he could guide it, and I just picked up this end. I was probably lifting 40 pounds maybe, and we took it over there and set it down, and that's where it'll stay for right now. I'll get in here and be able to work on it. So I've discovered a couple of things here. Most of the guys that are doing this, you have to cut about 4 inches off of the back here. So most of the guys are just cutting it off and re-drilling those holes that are necessary to mount stuff on. And I was thinking, well, you know what? I'm just going to cut 4 inches out of here and then weld that thing back on here, and then I don't have to worry about drilling the holes. And that would have worked out pretty good, except there's a chunk of metal welded on the bottom there that I'd have to cut off and clean up. But even worse than that, we've got a chunk missing down here. So I'm going to go do the conventional thing everybody's doing. We'll cut the length off of it and then re-drill the holes. And that will give us what we need. We'll be back in business. Most of those holes, so these holes right here are the two that the bed bolts to. And outside of them, there's really nothing else that has to be there except for how you choose to mount your bumper. And I'm not sure if I'm going to reuse the bumper that I've got. It's not in excellent shape, and I can't remember if the trailer has one on it or not. If it has a better one, I may use it. So then I'll have to figure out where I want to drill those holes out. But I'm going to show you a couple little things here why this Bumpside Ford is one of the easiest ones to shorten of all the pickups that there are out there that I've seen. So when you cut your chassis here and it's a little over 16 inches that we're going to take out of this area right here. And that means that anything that goes through there that's hard, we've got to cut down. And so you start looking in here and you go, oh, well, what's the hard things? You've got the drive shaft, which we will have to cut that, and you should probably do it professionally, but I'm going to show you how to do it at home and save that money, because it'll run you 80 to 100 bucks to have a drive line shortened. Usually you're going to have to shorten your exhaust. Well, this one just has that cherry bomb attached to it. And so when we shorten it up here, it's really not going to change anything. This old exhaust hanger here, I'm going to unbolt it, and we may be able to put it back in someplace in there so that we can reuse it. And that will be something really easy. But here's a fun thing. One of the most places that you spend the money on these is the emergency brake cables. On a Chevy, I think there's a connector down here, and you have an emergency brake cable that loops through something and goes back like this. Well, in order to take your 16 inches out of there, you can't. Actually, I think there is a way that I might try when I shorten my Chevy. But so you have to go buy a short bed cable loop there. The cool thing on this is Ford, when they did this, they said, well, hey, let's just make a standard short bed set of cables here, and then on the long beds we'll just put an extender cable on. So there's this chunk of cable goes from here to here. We'll just take those out, get rid of these C-shaped things here, and that ball will move up and fit right into our deal here. So we'll do that. We'll cut this spring and cut 16 inches out of it, put another loop in it, and that'll fasten back in. And the biggest problem, really, I mean, the drive line's going to be, take some expertise or something there, but the next biggest problem is that brake line right there. But it's got a T right there, or not a T, a coupler. So they probably had a long bed brake line, which is this one, and they probably had a short bed brake line that both joined right there. Well, I could take 16 inches out of here and just reflare it and join it back there, but that line's not in that great a shape. So I'm just go down to the parts store, and I'll get a piece of raw line that's that long and bend it in there and screw the thing back in place, and it'll probably cost me, I'm going to say, under $10 for that piece of brake line. And literally, for the cost that I'm going to have, that's the only money that I'm going to spend in shortening this Ford, because we don't have to deal with the gas tanks. Remember, on my I got my square body Chevy out there, and in order to shorten it, it's got its two main gas tanks or saddle tanks on both sides of it, and I've got to actually go buy another tank or figure out another solution for it, and I haven't got that far yet, but it'll be coming up. But this one we don't. I talked about the gas tank problem being solved in there, and we're here. So this is going to be really simple, and I'm going to, the next video that we're going to do here is the actual process of laying out the frame and cutting it and welding it back together, cutting the tails off of the frame back there and getting them ready to go again. So I love this. This is going to be a super sweet, simple project, and I think it's going to be a great way to show that this is how you start and what you can do. So that's about it. Well, let's throw in one more thing. So we've got on this long bed, it bolts in here, right there, and there is a cross member here, but the next bolt is not till back here, and this is where the short bed bolt is. So on the long bed floors, they threw in this cross member, which if we wanted to cut the bed in here and leave that cross member, we could actually slide it up, but we'd have two cross members right next to each other we'd be dealing with. And so I think that I'm going to try to get rid of this one and just pull those two together, and we'll be ready to go. I believe that the short bed doesn't have that cross member in it, and I'll know when I get my other bed over here and off. But anyway, there you go. That's where we're at. Obviously, this thing's dirty. The kid that had it before me had just taken it out in the hills and gone mudding with it. So I need to get it cleaned off a little bit here. And I'll probably work on getting a lot of that dirt knocked off of it. I don't have a power washer. I'd love to just do that. But we'll get it cleaned up, and then we'll show you the next part of the process.